Hi, I'm indie fantasy author Melinda Kucsera, and we're back with another episode of Fantasy Lore and More. In this episode, Jill Chard is joining me to talk about her book, The Relic Thief, and she's also going to talk about this interesting thing called Hopepunk, which is apparently a type of fantasy novel. So let's get Jill on here. Welcome, Jill.
Hi.
And tell us about The Relic Thief and Hopepunk.
Okay, well, The Relic Thief is an adult fantasy novel, and it follows a girl named Nila who is talented in ways she doesn't really understand. She escaped her homeland and came to this city called Feral because she was told to. She was told to find the city in the south, and that's what she did. And she thought she would find more people like her there, but she found nobody, and she's been alone for many years. So she made her way as a thief, and she began a friendship one day with. She got caught basically by the person whose bedroom she crawled into, and he ended up seeing her natural talent, which is that magic doesn't affect her, and so the background of where she is that the background of Feral is that the whole world that it's set in used to be full of magic and controlled by the magi who used magic. But they went to war at one point, and the magic became so powerful that during the war, it completely destroyed itself and magic completely disappeared. And at that point, the merchants took over, and to remain in power, they'd always been controlled by the magi, and to remain in control, they destroyed everything to do with magic. All its any papers that gave instructions on how to use magic, any kind of magical tool, anything about magic, they destroyed. They made it completely illegal, except these little magical items kind of stuck around, hidden by these rich merchant families, kind of as antiques, which they called relics. And that is what Nila became very adept at stealing. So this person she met saw that she was talented. She's a null. Magic doesn't affect her. So she can pick up these magical items, no problem. And so he convinced her to start stealing these magical items, and it became very lucrative. And
The person had her wanted her to steal relics.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing she did, since it's called Relic Thief.
Yes, she did. She stole relics, not for this person, but just he suggested it was a really good way to make money is to steal the relics. But what he did do, because he was really interested in magic, so he would get her to bring them to him, and he would study them, and he would record what was on every single one, what it looked like, if there were any runes on it, the shape of it, and he would make little notes. And he was planning to start building back kind of a magical book, a book of relics, just kind of for historical purposes. And then suddenly she meets this stranger who doesn't have a very good aura about him, and she doesn't trust him at all. And he is after the relics as well. And she finds herself suddenly in a plot to bring back magic, and she has to manage her way fighting against this person. This person has not good plans. He is not a very nice person. He will stop at nothing to get the relics, including unleashing this horrifying beast from bygone days, who will just hunt everybody down and just eviscerate them. So he's willing to unleash that into a city of many, many people. And so he's very ruthless, and she knows, like, what she really wants to do is just get out of the city. But then she's pulled back because she knows she's the only one that can really stop it. So,
oh wow.
Yeah, so she doesn't really want to be the hero, but she's convinced that she needs to participate at least, that her talent is really important.
Sounds it. That's interesting, though, that she'd be involved in a plot to bring back magic when magic doesn't affect her. So whether
Hmm.
it comes back or not is like,
So there's a
who
twist to
wouldn't
that,
care?
which I won't give away. But there's a reason why her particular ability is important for this.
That's interesting.
Hmm.
So, all right. So before we go into the excerpt, I do want you to explain Hopepunk because you started talking about it, and I stopped you before we got on air, and I, it's not a term. I'm starting to see it a little bit more often, but it's not a description of like what it actually is.
Okay, so Hopepunk is it's a genre that is less about that one. I know so far I've made it sound like Nila is this, like, she has this power and she's going to come and save the day, but in reality, it's she needs to lean on other people, and other people need to lean on her. And it's her special ability does help, but it's really a combination of community coming together, like people working together, found family, found interest. So small people with no power coming together, and through the togetherness, they gain enough power to fight against the corrupt power. So Hopepunk is about it's about like found family, found community, and people coming together, like grassroots organizations kind of thing. Is
This,
kind of it's a communal response
yeah.
to the challenges that those characters face,
It
rather
also,
than the
yeah,
hero,
yeah.
rather than the
It's,
one hero conquering all, or
yeah.
the found talent, like the reluctant hero that is just so good immediately as sword wielding that he has to go off and save the day. And
Oh, I'm not generous like that. I mean, I know some authors do. I'm not, no, just because they're the reluctant hero doesn't mean that they get any, like, that they actually know how to fight or do anything.
yeah,
I mean like that.
yeah,
Because that's like
yeah,
my biggest pet peeve is when like the reluctant hero is suddenly awesome at everything. Not in
yeah,
my
yeah,
books. It sounds
yeah.
like not in yours either, which is awesome. But I
I
just
think
wanted
the
to,
resounding
sure.
message of it though should be that there's, like, rather than, grim dark, which is very cynical, and you
Mm,
walk away going like, everything, who cares, like everything's crappy anyway, so why care about anything. Hope Punk is about, like, yeah, things are crappy, this is a horrible situation, but together the little people can come together and conquer. There's hope.
this Yeah, it sounds like you're using, so like there's the hero's quest is one story structure. It sounds like you're using the heroine's journey because that's very much about like community, people coming together, and it's not about, because the hero's journey, the big thing feature of that is like, think about Hercules or
Hmm.
Odysseus. The hero goes off, leaves everything behind to seek his destiny, or slay the whatever it is, and they end up like miserable and alone at the end because to be the hero on the hero's quest, you have to separate yourself from everything. But the heroine's journey is the opposite. You don't leave and go out. You can still go off on a quest, but it's not about you as an individual. And the more you separate
Hmm.
yourself, the more your quest fails on a heroine's journey. You have to bring people together and work together in order to achieve your goal. Otherwise, you cannot. Your quest will fail. So
Yeah,
I just think it
exactly.
sounds, yeah, it sounds like you're using which I think is awesome. So I just wanted to point that out because I was hearing it and I was like, I need to, because I think the
Yeah,
heroine's
it's
journey doesn't
absolutely
get,
that. Like, she
yeah.
might have a talent, and on the other people that become basically her family that she gathers to her, or they gather
Hmm.
her to them, they all have their own talents. They all can be kind of mini heroes, I guess, but they can't really do it alone. They have to lean
That's
on
the
each other to
heroine's
do it.
journey. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and
it's like the
she doesn't
Avengers.
want to. She doesn't want to do it.
Yes.
She wants to be alone, and she realized, and she wants to be alone because of what happened to her in the past. Like, it's easier to be alone than to be
Yep.
hurt, right? So it's about learning to love again, knowing that life is full of pain, and and that, but you still have to live life, and you still have to accept people into your life because they can lift you up, right? So that's why I called it Hopepunk, because I know, like, my book can be really dark. It gets really, really dark. But the whole reason it's a series called The Other Side of Darkness is because she does reach a dark place, and she learns how to come through to a lighter side, to find family, and to find people to lean on that will celebrate her and lift her up and allow her potential to really soar. And she does the same to those people. So that's why it's Hopepunk.
Yeah, and it's using the heroine's journey. It's like the Avengers. They can't defeat it unless they all work together. When they're not working together, it's disaster. They're not getting anywhere. Everything's getting destroyed. They're not effective. But yeah, no, it's that's just really cool that you're using the heroine's journey in that way. Shall we meet Nila? Do you want to go into the excerpt? You can hear her in her own words.
Absolutely. I'll read you chapter 1.
Perfect.
And I have to put on glasses because I'm getting old. All right. So chapter 1. Nila ran hard through the pouring rain. Splashes from pursuing feet echoed behind her, the gap between her and them closing. Puddles jumped to life as she sped through them, scattering in reflected lamplight. A dark alley loomed ahead on her left. Alleys were good. There was always something to climb in an alley. She dared not slow down to turn the corner. She'd have to jump it, have to run straight at the wall and push off with her foot to change direction. She would lose less speed that way. She calculated her angle and sped toward the wall. Something squelched underfoot just as she made her jump. She slipped, and her knees slid hard into the bricks. The rest of her body hit, ricocheted off, and landed in something unpleasant. Well, she'd surely changed direction. Struggling on the wet, decaying refuse, she scrambled back to her feet and ran on. The Wadi were much closer now. What the king were they doing there anyway? Don't worry, Balak had said. The guards have become lazy and overconfident now that Amos Istri has made the 13. Well, Balak had been wrong. Not only were the guards alert and competent, Istri had brought in Wadi mercenaries. Nila was lucky to have made it this far. She searched for her way up to the roofs. She didn't usually go up top on a night like this, too slippery. But she would have to risk it. There were no awnings or shop signs, though, no ledges or balconies within reach, not even a drain pipe that looked solid enough to hold her weight. She was nearing the end of the alley. She willed herself to go faster, knowing she'd have to try the next street. A dark shape suddenly glided into the mouth of the alley, blocking her escape. An instant later, a solid white wall formed between them. She hit it, bounced off, and fell back, landing hard on her backside. Then the wall was gone, and the figure was moving toward her. She managed to say as she peeled herself off the street, feeling wobbly and mildly outraged at the brutality of walls. The cloaked figure stopped an arm's length away from her. Nila couldn't see his face under his cowl, but he had a strange smell to him, like the smell of a cold winter day in the mountains. She couldn't understand how he had stopped her. Was that magic? Impossible. In any case, he did not mean her well. She started backing away. Footsteps splashed up behind her. The Wadi. Any hope of retreat was gone. Damn the king. She was in a tight spot. She wiped blood from her nose and studied the situation. The alley offered her nothing, but past it, on the street, behind the cloaked figure, stood a marble statue, one of seemingly hundreds planted all over the city. Magus or merchant, she couldn't tell, but someone had done something great, and someone else had erected a statue there to celebrate it. All Nila had to do was get past this ill-intentioned stranger so she could use it to get to the roofs. Her hand grazed the cudgel in her thigh pocket as she looked behind her at the 3 Wadi. No, her cudgel would cause her more trouble than it was worth with them. One of the Wadi spoke, his accent strange and abrupt, his words as efficient as his body. Mazul, that's you? The dark figure grunted a response, his voice deep. Lucky for us you're here, huh? Sarcasm, that was unexpected. You, he said to Nila, You very fast, very clever. Much respect. Now you give back the relic. The three Wadi took a choreographed step toward Nila. She looked ahead and behind. The figure called Mazul held a gloved hand up toward her, palm up. He wanted her to hand the relic over to him. The Wadi seemed to be okay with that. They were working together. Nila stared at Mazul's outstretched hand and knew what to do. All right, you got me. But how do I know you won't beat the snot out of me if I hand it over? She stepped closer to Mazul. Can you offer me that guarantee? The Wadi, who had spoken, closed in on her from behind. He clearly didn't trust her. Perfect. She feigned to grab for her cudgel, and as she had hoped, Mazul's hand snapped down like a viper and grabbed her arm. As he grabbed her, she used her other hand to clasp the amulet hanging from her neck. Blue lightning erupted from it and raced through her into Mazul, catching and holding him in its electric embrace. She yanked the amulet from her neck in the next instant and stretched behind her to the Wadi just as he began to move backward. A twin bolt arced from her into his body. She thrust her arms downward and a sharp crack blasted the two men back. They landed on the cobblestones, unconscious. The other two Wadi cried out but dared not approach. Nila leapt over Mazul and ran to the statue. Climbing it, she propelled herself from its shoulders onto the window ledge. From there, she jumped and caught the gutter. It was slippery and she almost lost her grip, but she managed to lift herself up. She scrambled up the roof, pausing at the ridgeline to look back. Her blood thundered through her body. She felt the throbbing of it in her head, the tingle in her fingertips and toes. This was more than just exertion. She had almost been caught. Her mouth curled up into a grin. Alma's histories, remaining Wadi, were astir now, clucking loudly in their language, alternately checking on their comrade and trying to keep Nila in view. It was only then, looking down on them, that she began to feel the pain in her knee and bruises forming. She limped away before they decided she was more important than their friend. One near miss was enough. Hobbling carefully along the tiles, she pulled herself to another rooftop. Behind her came a low, thunderous bellow. One royally pissed off mystery man had just come around. That's the end of chapter 1.
I'm never sure, so I always wait until the author tells me.
I'm always keen to read more. I read better than I ad-lib, clearly.
I mean, it's up to you. It's your book, baby. You know what's going to hook us. If you think that's the first chapter, if you want to read another chapter, I'm an audiobook. I love audiobooks. Before we started, I bought 10 audiobooks on Audible because apparently the 3,000 I own are not enough.
Oh, wow. That's insane. But good insane. I can read the second chapter because it introduces the friend and kind of the reason why she's stealing the relics. I feel like I didn't give a very good description of that before. So do you want me to read this?
No, that's fine. Like I said, I'm weak. I like hearing books, so I'm not gonna say no. Go right ahead.
Okay, so chapter 2. We could just do this all day. Nila crawled through a 4th-story window, knee throbbing painfully, soaked and exhausted. She froze in surprise halfway through, looking like her thief counterpart in a Panzu play. Music and laughter greeted her. A man was swaying and twirling his arms while her friend Karis sat on a chair with his back to her, playing his cittern and laughing. As the dancing man spun past her, he saw her. "Oh, hello," he said brightly, even though his eyes looked glazed and dreamy. Karis jumped at the man's words, the music ceasing. "Nila, I didn't expect you until morning." The man continued dancing despite the lack of music. "I had to get off the streets fast, and it's too dangerous to be on the roofs tonight. I'm sorry, I didn't know you were entertaining." The man glided over and gently pulled Nila from the window. He flopped his arms over her shoulders, mindless of her wet clothes, and made her sway with him. She ducked out from his embrace. "Don't worry about it," Karis smiled as he put down his instrument. "This is my friend Hectoro. He took Nila's place and danced with the grinning man. Were you successful? Of course. Wonderful. Go get yourself warm and dry. I'll be there soon. He began to hum and spin his friend around in a circle. The man laughed, his face shining. Nila turned and left for the study. They were having fun. Good. Why shouldn't they? She thought, with somewhat forced charity, as she undid the straps of the bag on her back. She dropped the bag on a side table beside an armchair, placed squarely in front of the fireplace. She pulled her pendant from her pocket and set it down as well before going to her room. Karis, the only child of a rich jaw merchant family, occupied the entire fourth floor of his family's six-tier Benny, Farrell's version of a walled mansion. He gave Nila a room to use whenever she needed it. It was part of the deal they had made, and it suited her well, especially on nights like this when returning home was just too dangerous. The only caveat was that she was not, under any circumstances, to enter through the front door. His parents would vehemently disapprove of her presence in the Benny, which meant far more awkward moments crawling through his window than she liked, and far too many bitten tongues at what she found within. Nila peeled off her wet clothes and donned dry ones. In the bottom of her drawer, she found thick woolen socks she'd bought at the souk and pulled those on as well. She returned to the study and plunked down in the soft armchair to run a towel over her hair. A fire cracked brightly in the hearth, warming the room. Cool, wet weather had been stubbornly holding on in Farrell. It would break soon, though, and the city would be thrust into its dry season of beautiful sunshine, markets bursting with harvests, and carnivale. She stretched over to grab the pendant from the table. The firelight shone dully through its milky green crystal. Its charge wouldn't return fully until morning, so for the time being, it was just a thing of beauty, just a treasured object. She carefully retied it around her neck, then pulled the chair closer to the fire to examine her knee. It was bruised and tender, but nothing more. She felt her nose. It wasn't broken either, but she could guess there would be purple half-moons under her eyes by morning. She thought about the chase, how close she'd been to getting caught. Relics were risky business. Were they really worth getting caught for, though? Balak paid good coin for them, but coins wouldn't be worth much if she were dead, or worse. She calculated her savings in her head, wondering how much she would need to start over, but she was just toying with herself. She knew she wouldn't quit. Coin wasn't the only thing motivating her. Nila opened her bag and took out a pouch. She unbound its leather cord and retrieved the prize inside, a dull metal cylinder she could just encircle with her forefinger and thumb. It was about the length of her hand and strangely light. Spiral grooves ran around the top and bottom. The engravings etched on it were worn down in places, and layers of dirt seemed to be caked in its reliefs. But she could still make out the shapes of human heads in profile, one larger, one smaller. Dashes ran from the eyes of the larger head through the smaller one and around the cylinder to the first. Runes of some kind filled in the negative spaces, most heavily worn. It was the first relic she'd seen in this shape, and she found it quite comfortable in her hand, as if it was meant to be held. She wondered what power used to lie within its puzzle. She ran her fingers carefully over the engravings. Some relics were booby-trapped with poison pins, and poison could kill her. But a relic's magic never could, even if it still held power. It could give her a tingle or goosebumps like when she passed through wards, but nothing more. Nila was a null. Magic didn't affect her, which was why her amulet could knock both the cloaked figure and the Wadi unconscious, but leave her unscathed. It was what made her a great thief. She could bypass wards on doors, windows, vaults, jewelry boxes. Wards were the only real magic to have survived both the destruction and the purge. And get into all those things meant to stay out of reach. Something niggled at her. That man in the cloak, Mazul, had done something in the alley that sure seemed like magic. She shouldn't have been affected, but she was. If it wasn't magic, what was it? Music floated in from the other room, accompanied by a burst of laughter. She did her best to ignore it. So there's more, but I think I'll stop there if that's okay. There's a little bit more where Karis comes in and examines the relic. She gives it to him and he starts to sketch it in this book.
No, we can stop there. It's up to you.
Yeah.
Thanks for reading another chapter. Like I said, that's really why I do these. I like hearing authors read their books to me.
I love audiobooks too.
Yeah, I also love talking about books. So and hearing about people's story worlds, their characters, and there's a lot to dig into here. So like,
yeah, it's full of here. I'll take my glasses off.
You can leave them on. It's up to you. Unless you don't want us to see, you don't want to see us better.
No, it's the opposite. I can't really see far, but I can. Okay. I need them for reading, but nothing else.
I'm the opposite. I can't see anything. I need assistance. But okay, so there was magic, and then somehow magic all went away. Is that like? Do they know why it went away, or is it like they have to figure it out? They don't really
understand much about magic in this world because the merchants. So hundreds of years ago, there was lots of magic. There's still all these relics of it around, like not just the things that get stolen and secretly traded between the merchants because they like to have something naughty in their vaults or whatever. But there's Feral is set in the bowl of an extinct volcano that exploded. So it's kind of, I think Santorini's like this maybe. So it's a big curve, and the city goes up in tiers. And at the edge of the tiers are these orbs sticking out of the mountains that are ancient weapons used by mages long ago. And so magic used to be super, super powerful and very, very destructive. And of course, there's power grabs, and one magi in particular, Magus in particular, wanted to be the ultimate one with all the power, and he fought this war against these other ones. And it ended up in this event called the Destruction, which all of a sudden, like, everything exploded. It caused this desert to appear, a desert that nobody can go into anymore because it sucks you into it like it's a death trap. So it created this whole swath of dead land that's just desert now. And then magic just disappeared. Nobody could use it anymore. It was gone. Nobody understood why. And then the merchants took control and said, hey, they can't control us anymore, and we want to have the power now. So they went around and did the purge, which was they executed magi. They destroyed everything there was to do with magic so that nobody could come back. Nobody could use any knowledge to come back, bring magic back. So that was why magic just wasn't around anymore. Nobody had any knowledge of how to do it. It still existed. In my world, magic, there's a few different kinds of magic, and it comes through your blood. So you inherit it from your parents or your grandparents. It's like a recessive gene that shows up. And so it still existed in people, but they didn't know how to use it. And so I won't spill any more of the story because it's really quite a mystery. How the story unfolds is an adventure mystery kind of thing. Like she's trying to figure out what the heck's going on. Like, why is magic coming back all of a sudden? And it has something to do with the relics, obviously. And obviously this mysterious stranger is really interested in it too. And yeah.
I mean, because why wouldn't a mysterious stranger be interested?
Right. But how does he know?
Like, how
does he even know anything about it? Like,
because he's a mysterious stranger.
Yes, he is.
That's that's like a job requirement. If you're going to be a mysterious stranger, you have to know about all the cool stuff, and you have to be strategizing to get it always. No, it's not. I'm just like, I'm just joking. But I feel like that's kind of a trope in fantasy, that the magic going away and then coming back, mysterious strangers always having the cool stuff or wanting the cool stuff.
Yeah, wanting power. There's lots of people that want power, and they'll do anything they can get to they will do anything to get it, to build it up. So there's that. There's a lot of politics in it.
I mean, to be honest, we would do anything to get our books out there, wouldn't we?
That's true. That's
We don't
true.
want power, but
I don't
like,
think I'd kill people for it though.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I would, but like, I've never been in a situation where that was necessary, so
No.
I can't really say. I mean,
No.
I hope I wouldn't, but like,
well, power corrupts, right?
that's true. That's true. And books are power, so
yeah.
maybe we're doomed.
I highly doubt it.
Oh, good. See, you have hope.
We make the world go round, right?
You have hope because you're writing Hopepunk.
Yes,
the community
right.
would come together and prevent us from becoming
we would control the power together.
That's
and
right.
Wield it for good,
right.
You know, because we wouldn't be corrupt because we're writers.
Right. And the rising tide lifts all boats. And
there you go.
Lots of authors lift lots of books.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, well, it's what you're doing.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And making my TBR get like super long.
Yeah. I joined BookBub. No, is that what it's called? Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
It's a disaster. It's, all these books pop up that are 99 cents or $1.99. You're like, yeah, I can take it. Sure, I'll take that.
Yeah.
That
Don't look
good.
at Chirp because they do a lot of discounted audiobooks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have it only because I was like, I don't want, if I have like, I was like, I don't know that I want to have my audiobook obsession spread to multiple platforms.
Yeah. Well, I'm hampered a little bit because I can't, for some reason, download the app. So I have to listen through their website, and it's really sketchy. So it hampers me a little bit. So
that's
which is good. It slows me down.
That's why I was a little bit leery. I've done some like audiobook arcs where people are looking for reviews because I listen to like a book a day, sometimes 2 books a day.
Oh, wow.
I work 8 hours and I have a long commute the days that I go to the office. So like,
and you walk a lot?
Yeah, and I walk on my lunch break and stuff. So like, and after work or before work, and so it's like I have like I mean sometimes I'm listening for like 10 hours a day unless I have like a bunch of meetings or something, and then I cuts into it. But yeah, and sometimes I listen to more than 1 book a day. So I'm always trying to feed the addiction.
It's amazing.
I'd found audiobooks in 2010 and like that was the end of my bank account having a positive balance. I have been keeping many authors afloat through my audiobook obsession. Proudly. Yes. Okay. So magic went away and it came back and it's coming back because of the relics, which I think is really cool. Now I want to know why, but
yeah. It's not very strong.
You're not going to tell us.
Yeah, no, I can't tell you.
No, and you wouldn't expect the magic to come back with like a bang and be super strong. That it, if it's going to come back and no one notices, it's going to have to like creep in.
Yeah, it does. It does.
That was the feeling that I was getting, is that it's creeping it, which is cool because like usually it's magic comes back with a bang and all the magical creatures are out of the closet. So it's kind of neat that you're doing sort of a slower creep in because that.
Although really, if you bring it back with a bang, that's kind of fun. Like all of a sudden, everywhere is magic and nobody knows how to even deal with it.
Well, usually it's coupled by like there's like an apocalypse or something that comes with it. Like everything stops working because technology is like one of my favorite series plays with that. And it's so fun to read. I would not want to live through that. So, if you're out there and you're playing with some relics, like please don't cause a magical apocalypse. Don't bring all the magic. I like the technology too.
So in my book, the apocalypse already happened. And it created this, it's called the shifting desert. So if you walk into this desert, all of a sudden the sand shifts underneath you and sucks you in.
Ooh, how do you get out? Or do you get out?
You don't. You're gone. Ooh. You're gone. If you want me to read a little more, my prologue deals with the desert.
I'm really tempted. Yeah, you know what? Let's do that. But before we do that, like I just want to get a sense of like, is it so? The Relic Thief is the first book in the series. Is the second book out?
It is not. It's in process. It's getting written now. It's not very far along. I
Okay.
have a completely other book that I got. Here we have a Canada Council, which gives grant money to artists and writers and stuff. So I was able to get a Canada Council grant a couple of years ago to write a literary fiction novel that I had planned. And so I kind of like stopped the fantasy to write this literary fiction. And so I've
Wait,
got
wait.
to get that
What
finished.
is literary fiction for
It's
those
like
like
literary fiction is more contemporary stories of people and challenges they go through, and more prose like, I suppose. Mine, I would say, is like, it could also be considered book club fiction. You know, it's very um written for, I would say, women more than men. I don't
okay.
think a lot of men would read the book, actually, but not that men don't have book clubs, they certainly do, but book club fiction seems to be a category
Yeah, it seems to
squarely in the
focus.
women's section.
Yeah, it seems to be focused on women's fiction, women's issues, and a lot of
Yeah,
book clubs like Reese Witherspoon and such are women running book clubs. There are some really great book clubs that are run by
yeah,
other
by men. Yeah,
others and
and other
that
genders.
yeah and
Yes,
focus on other
absolutely. Yes.
what is it, Fable? There's some very cool, I think that's the site. There's some very cool book clubs on there run by a variety of really interesting people. I think that's what it's called.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, I think that's what
So it tends to be a certain type, you know, like
but
um
that's the thing I liked about it. It was a site with all different book clubs, and there was ones that are like, do you like military sci-fi, or do you like reluctant hero fantasy, do you like
mhm,
super epic fantasy that's not super depressing? Like some of them were like laser focused on like a specific thing, and some of them are more broad. And it was just sort of interesting. I'd always thought book club fiction was, you know, women's fiction and stuff, and I always thought it
yeah,
was not for me because I don't enjoy those kinds of books. They're
mhm,
just, I tried reading a couple and I was like, this is just not for me. I'm bored. I don't enjoy this. Nothing is
mhm.
happening. Where's the explosions? Where's the magic? Can we
Where's
get a
the
spaceship,
dragons?
please? Basically, like I
Yeah,
was like, I'm not, I enjoy genre fiction, but I don't enjoy the literary fiction. It was not
yeah.
that it was very well written. It was just not written for me.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that was
I tend
interesting.
to like both. Like, I'm a huge Michael Ondaatje fan. I like both kinds of fiction, but I'm really at home with fantasy and sci-fi. Like, it's
Yeah.
just, it's home for me. I love it, and it makes me feel
So
good.
what made, so okay, so fantasy and science fiction is your home, your heart home.
Yeah.
So what made you apply for a grant to write literary fiction?
I my family went through a really traumatic experience, and I think I really needed to heal from that through writing.
Okay.
So the book deals with a similar theme, I would say, to the trauma that my family went through. So it helped. Although I have to say the editing is it. I wrote it, and now I have to go through and edit it again, and it's very emotionally and very, very difficult thing to do.
Okay.
But
Is
I
that
think
coming out this year? Sorry to
no,
cut you off.
it's still editing. Like I need to look for a publisher after this. Like I want to do my last edit first and then send it out to either agents or publishers. And you don't necessarily need an agent here in Canada to get it to get it published with Canadian publishers. So
Is
we'll
that
see.
part of the
We'll see.
grant requirement that you have to get it published
No, I
traditionally?
fulfilled my grant. I wrote, like, it was a grant just to write a book. It's really, really nice. The Canada Council is fantastic. If there's any Canadians watching, then the more people that apply just shows the government how much the grant is needed. So apply, everybody apply, because it's
So
a fantastic grant.
I never even heard of this. I'm not Canadian, so it's probably why I've never heard of this.
Yeah,
So
there may
like
be
so
grants in the US. I don't know.
maybe the National Council for the Arts or something.
Yeah, yeah,
So
something like
you
that.
apply for the grant, and if you get it, do you have to prove that you did the thing that they gave you the money for?
Yes, yes,
Did
you
you
do.
take off, was the money enough that you took off work to write this, or like why
Well,
did you need a grant
I
to
was
write
on
it?
health leave anyway. Um, I spent the first year on health leave, and then when I applied for the grant, I actually took a leave of absence from my job because teaching is a very emotional job. It's very intense. So there's no way I could, deal with everything. So the second year I took a leave of absence to write because I felt that was the best pathway to healing. And so it was it's a good enough grant that you could pay your bills with for sure. They give you a good healthy amount, I would say. It's really lovely. And it's not just for writers, it's for artists of any kind, as people putting on shows. If you have public art you want to put up, like it's an arts grant, so it's really a fantastic program.
Yeah. So okay, so you wrote the book. Do you send them a copy, or you send them a letter? Hey, thanks for the grant money, I wrote the book.
Yeah, kisses. I can't quite honestly. I know I fulfilled the requirement. You do a lot of paperwork. Not a lot, I shouldn't say that. It's not that hard to do. I don't think I sent them the book, but I did confirm that I spent my time writing the book, and I included editing in that, and so I included a receipt for the editor. I did a content edit on it, and which is what I'm trying to work through now.
Those can be brutal.
Oh, she was in such a good way, I have to say. It was really, really healthy. Anyway, so that's why book 2 of The Relic Thief is delayed. But I've started it, so that's good. I also got my fingers into a YA pirate adventure, historical fiction pirate adventure, which is really fun. It's so fun.
Which do you think is obviously the literary fiction's, well, if you traditionally publish literary fiction, which is probably a good route to go for that, because literary fiction is more of a traditional publishing game. I mean, there are indie authors who publish it, right, yeah. But I feel like because it's such a Oprah, Reese Witherspoon, and you really need a big publisher behind you to get in that.
And honestly,
there have been indie authors who have. I know there are some, but yes, there have been. I can't remember some of their names, but there have been indie authors who have gotten their books on Oprah, on other things, but they didn't write just one literary fiction. This is something they did, and they wrote literary fiction.
Establish themselves first, right?
Yes. Yeah. So yes, in a way, yes. And they also did other things that crossed over with it. So they had a lot to bring that Oprah or some of these other things would be interested in. I can't remember her name, but she's just an amazing human being to begin with.
I think I know what track you're going on, but I can't remember the name.
Yeah, either. But it doesn't sound like literary fiction is something you're going to be writing a lot of if your
I don't think so.
Is in.
Well, who knows? Who knows what happens with this book? And
that's true. That's true.
You never know where your life is going to tumble, but I really love writing fantasy, and I'm really enjoying the pirate's story too.
So coming back to the fantasy, which do you think is going to be next? The Relic Thief sequel? Does it have a title?
It does not, no.
Okay, so we'll call it the sequel to the Relic Thief, or the pirate story. Which one is the muse or the characters calling out to you more?
I'm really drawn to the second in the series, in the Relic Thief series. I'm really I'm drawn to that. I'm thinking about it constantly, but I've also just got a little smidgen of an idea of doing a companion novella. I love characters. I'm very character driven in my writing. I love creating characters. And so I'm always creating these characters in my head. Oh, this guy could live here, and this is what he does for a living, and da da da. And so I've got a little niggling desire in my head to write a little companion novella. But I really probably should write number 2 first.
I mean, I would get the next book in the series that readers are looking for before they forget you. Before they forget you.
I know.
And you can always come back to the companion one later. Or turn that into a spin-off series or something, depending on what is going on there. But I would at least get 3 books out in the other side of darkness.
I know
series.
There's a lot of people who won't even buy the first book if the series isn't finished. There's a lot of chatter about that. They've been burned.
But if book 2 is on pre-order or something, because that's what I'm struggling at the moment. I finished book 1 in the new trilogy, yesterday.
Oh, congrats!
I have to do the editing and stuff, but and I was gonna start writing book 2 today. I was working today, so we haven't gotten to it yet. But I owe my patrons that first chapter, which doesn't exist yet. So that'll be my next thing after this.
So do you release chapters to just your patrons? Oh, that's Do you,
I mean,
do you
I was
release
doing it.
all of them, or just,
Oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
that's cool.
I mean, I was doing it before there was anybody, just as like accountability, and then I said, I was like, I should put some. I was like, I'm gonna put a couple of these books into a trilogy, and and I was like, what, I'm gonna give that to patrons, and somebody signed up. They wanted that, and then they stuck around because like I was posting 4 chapters a week. Sometimes it's a struggle because I do work full time, but promising them that every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday there would be a chapter, like it means that I have to sit down and actually like get that done, no matter what else is going on.
That's a whole lot of accountability right there.
It is, and like I've been writing books faster. Like the last book I wrote 4 chapters a week, and it has 46 chapters, so I did it in like 11 weeks.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah, so like I'm looking at it and I'm like, by the time this first book gets through editing and all that, and could the earliest it could be out in the world is like maybe the end of October. Like I'll already have like the first act of the second book, and I was like, should I put it on pre-order or something? Like, so that's something I'm like thinking about, because I do 4 chapters a week, and I generally write between 40 and 70 chapters. Like, because sometimes the chapters are short. Like if there's a lot of like different perspectives, sometimes you only like need like, sometimes a chapter could be only like 1,000 words, just because like this character needs to do this specific thing so that this other character can react to it, or it causes the thing that the next person has to deal with or something. And because my books are about like 90,000 to 130,000 words. So this one that I just finished was 98,000 words.
That's amazing.
It's accountability. Like when you have to write 4 chapters a week, and like and chapters that I write range from like 1,000 words to like 4,000 words. So and occasionally I've actually, one of a couple of the chapters in the 46 chapter book were actually like, I had written, it was like the chapter was too long and I divided it, but I did actually like put it as one chapter. So it was about 10, 11 weeks of writing it. And I'm like, so I'm like, do I put the second one on pre-order? Like, I don't even have a cover for it, so we should probably handle that task first. I don't even really have a title.
Covers, or do you get them professionally done?
I started doing them myself, because when I first started self-publishing in 2016, I was unable to buy groceries some weeks during the month because I was so deeply in debt after so like the recession hit in like 2007, and I lost my job because the company I was working for in New York City laid off 30% of the company, and they let off my entire department. They were like, we're just going to outsource you to India. So no shade on that. Like, I know some really lovely people in India, some really lovely, talented people. So
but
no shade on that.
Keep your job.
Yeah. And it took like almost 2 years to find another job. So I went through everything, savings, credit cards. So when I started publishing in 2016, I was still just getting out of like debts. I am out of it now, but like I was still like, trying to pay all of that back.
It's really, really tough.
I had no money for anything. So I was like, okay, we're going to be getting some stock photos and figuring this out. Thankfully, like one of the jobs that I held after college was working for in the corporate retail office for a company that I'm not even sure they exist anymore, but they did like personalization, and I had to learn all about fonts because like I've worked in e-commerce for like, it feels like forever. And probably since the .com era, because like I did graduate from college in like 2002, like right in the middle of it. And like, they wanted you to be able to like on their website, like put in your whatever the heck you wanted to see on the shirt or the robe or the towel in the font. So I had to learn how to make the font and then embed it on the website so you could see whatever the heck you wanted monogrammed on the thing in the way it's going to actually look, or at least a close enough approximation, because the fonts that they were using were super fancy, like custom things. So like I learned a lot about fonts. So I knew I could do the font work on the cover, and I was like, all right, so we just need to figure out the image and the important part. And that over like years I've learned how to do that. I wouldn't say I was the best. I still would love to offload that to someone else, but I have at various points gotten covers. I've also run into a lot of, there's some really wonderful designers and there's some real scammers out there, and I have run into both. More of the scammers than the good ones, unfortunately. So
I had a friend do mine, and he did it for beer. So
that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Because I sat there for 100 hours and like bashed these things together. But book has to have a cover. I wish it would make its own cover. Like, come on, I made the book. Like, can't you at least cover yourself?
Yeah, and do the advertising at the same time.
Right? Come on, characters, get out there and sell yourselves.
Yeah.
But we've got an target.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
But yeah, the for self-publishing, I think even in traditional publishing, all the advertising and promotion you have to do on your own is just insanely difficult for so many. Like you see me, I'm not even comfortable in front of the camera, so selling myself is just does not come naturally to me. So I find that the hardest part. Like,
you don't have to sell yourself though, because you're not right now. We're talking about the book, the world, which is and what Hopepunk is, and like it's low pressure, and it's really interesting too. And
it's fun to talk.
You don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to be sleazy, about it. Like you can just be like
I could
real.
Try.
I mean, you could be sleazy if you want to. There's plenty of that out there.
So you need to rip the cover off my book to get into it, Anyway, I'm sorry. Let's continue, please.
No. There's all different ways, like that's one of the like interesting things I think about like indie publishing. There's no one way to get to where you're going. Like, if you don't like ads, don't run them. There's lots of authors who don't run ads and sell books other ways. If you don't like TikTok, don't use it. There's plenty of authors who don't, and they sell books. If there's something you do like, do it, and see what happens.
Yeah,
that's the cool thing, I think.
Yeah.
And especially if you get like the traditional publishing contract with either a Canadian company or one in the US or elsewhere, to traditionally publish, like you'll still have to do some of your own marketing, but it'll open other doors because traditional publishing is very print based. So it'll get your book into stores because they're all about the brick and mortar stores. Traditional
and people
publishing.
Still really love books. Like they love to hold them in their hands.
Yeah. And it's hard for us as indies to get our books into, not impossible. It is, there are ways, it is possible. But it's a lot of extra effort, and it's for indie authors. Like sometimes it's worth it. Sometimes it's not, because you're taking a big risk with returns. But with traditional publishing, you don't have that risk because they're the ones who are taking that risk. So it can open additional doorways. And there's a lot of indies who are hybrid because they open doors to like book, to Barnes and Noble and Books A Million. And
there was that one author, and I'm not sure if this is the same one that you were talking about before, but she was an indie author, and a publisher picked her up, but she made this amazing deal where she got to keep the rights to her ebook.
I mean,
so she had a traditional publisher do her print, but she got to keep everything from the ebook.
She's not the only one. I think Mark Dawson had a similar deal for one of his. There's been other authors who they had a book that did really, really well. And there's been some that got a deal and were like, here, take it all.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with it.
And
I
the
just
next
want to
big thing
write.
seems to be like after Brandon Sanderson, the Kickstarter campaigns, right?
I'm
That's an
running
option too.
one.
Are you really? Oh, great.
Yes. Starting October 2nd, for a trilogy of hardbacks. We don't have to, there's all different rewards levels, but like it's for I took one of my longer series, and I put them into three different I put each trilogy into a hardcover, and got pretty cover art. They're long because it's 3 books in there. They're all about like 800 to 900 pages.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I just got the like proofs like yesterday. I've been waiting
That's
for weeks to get them. So
pretty
yes,
exciting when it comes
I'm very
together, and
excited.
yeah.
Just
Congrats.
I'm
That's very
Thanks.
cool.
Yeah, I've been working on this since like last year. So like I couldn't tell anybody because I wasn't sure that I'd be able to like figure it out, that I'd get, because if you're a trilogy, you need three dust jacket covers, which
Mhm.
that's design. You need three
Mhm.
the case laminate covers, and like you need the thing formatted. These books don't format themselves. Like I
No.
wish they did. Like the work just doesn't end when you finish writing the book. It just, these books, it just requires so much. They're so needy. So
Mhm.
yeah, so there was the formatting for that, and then it was like finding a printer that had good quality, the prices weren't too extravagant, and that could actually like ship them to me, because some of them have like some of them have quotas, like you have to get 250 books, and I was like, I just want one to see what it looks like.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think I finally found a couple months ago the right combination of like a printer and all that, and then I was like, okay, I can actually do this. And then it was like, how do you set up a Kickstarter?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a whole other kettle of fish, isn't
Oh yeah, then I
it?
figured out all the rewards, and it was like, there's a story section, something should probably go here. It's just been a lot, and now I'm just like staring at it every day, like, should I move this, should I put more of that, like, did I figure out the shipping properly? Because like trying to figure out the shipping to Canada was like tricky.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Like
That's
I was like, dude, I think I could drive it to the Canadian border and like mail it myself or take the train to
people
Montreal. It goes
I
past my
kid you
house.
not. I kid you not, people do that all the time. There are people from my community, because we're only about an hour from the border, who have post boxes, PO boxes in just across the border, just so they could get stuff shipped there, pick it up there, and bring it across the border.
I would do it, man. I was thinking about it. I was like, I could literally like put all the packages on, because like I'm a mile from the Amtrak station, and it goes
Mhm.
straight to Montreal. It's like, I forget how many hours it is, but the train goes up to Montreal, and I was like, I could literally just get on that, get out at Montreal, bring the packages to the post office, hang out for a few days because Montreal's a cool place,
Yeah,
and
well, if you
like,
do, give me a shout and I'll take you around.
well, that'd be cool, because I took like French in like school, because like Canada's right, like you could go up to like Quebec. It's like right there.
Yeah, except the French in Quebec is a very different French than you learned in school, I'll tell you
No,
that.
I no, when I studied abroad in college, I found out like in Belgium that, because I got all these like weird looks in like Paris, and I was like, I'm speaking French. I understand you. You understand me. Why are you staring at me? And then I was in Belgium at the French part, like over in Bruges, and like I was trying to buy things, and they're like, "Are you from Canada?" And I was like, "No." Why are you asking that? Eventually, we got around to the fact that I was speaking uh, uh, Parisian French with a Quebecois accent, because my French teacher that I had for many, 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 many years,
Was from Quebec?
I'm guessing, or
Yeah,
like that's how she learned French, but like I had no idea. I was like, oh, so that's why I got all those weird looks in France.
it's pretty funny.
I love this. It was somebody in Belgium who finally told me. I don't remember a lot of it. Yeah, that was fun, because I was so excited when I started about it. I was like, I get to use my French finally. Because, when you go to Canada, everybody kind of speaks English to you. They're like, you're obviously American.
Yeah, if you're in the Montreal area, it's people switch to English so quickly. It's hard to get practice in for sure.
They just know. They just look at you and they're like, nope, you're American. Like, please don't try. Don't, no. Leave the French for us.
And yet, if you do try, they really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people just go boldly into a store and just start speaking English like it's not French at all. And so if you can start with a bit of French, even if it's terrible, it's so much appreciated.
I always started like apologizing. I'm sorry, my French isn't good. I learned it in school.
Well, you get us right there with that apology. We love to say I'm sorry.
See, in France, they were like not happy that, like, I don't know, they weren't happy that I tried speaking French to them.
I've heard that about Paris, though.
Yeah,
that's their reputation.
But then, like, they didn't like the French, and they didn't like it, but they wouldn't, like, I don't know. So they just kept speaking French at me. I'm like, well, I'm gonna keep trying to speak French back to you because that's polite, If you switch to English, I'll switch to English. It'd be easier for me, but maybe not for you. So I'm gonna keep plowing through and probably murdering language. But I found outside of France, like, it was different story. Like, just the fact that you were like trying, because it's hard when it's not your first language and you're like nervous and like you're on a school trip and like. It's so I know I was not, my pronunciation was not on point. My French teacher would have been very upset at me, but I
had a friend who lived in Lausanne for at least a year, if not two. And he said the accent in Lausanne is like an English person speaking French. He said it was great. He said he could get along so easily with them because it just sounded like they were Anglophone.
I didn't know that.
Don't take my word for it. I haven't been there to hear it myself, but that's how he described it. It's they speak slowly and clearly and with an accent that's similar to as if you're English.
I mean, some people were really nice about it. Sure. Like when I got lost in the Louvre and could not, and it was like, and the security guard was like telling me it's closing time. And I was like, well, I don't know how to get out of here. I would leave, which is what you want me to do, but I don't know where the exit is. I was so lost in the Louvre that they had to show me how to get out of there. And then I like came out a different exit and I was like, I don't remember how to find the metro. Yeah, it was wild. Good times. It was a lot of fun though. It was a lot of fun.
I have yet to be to France. I've been to England and Italy, but not France.
I was there for I think 3 days. It was a trip. I studied the program that I studied abroad. My college didn't have a study abroad program. You went to, but they had a relationship with the American Institute for Foreign Study, and they had a campus in London. So they were like, well, you could go there. And so I applied and I got in. And nice. But then before that started, they had a pre-study trip, and I like begged my parents for the money, and they helped me pay for that. And so the study abroad trip, you flew into Amsterdam, and then you went around Amsterdam for a few days, which was cool. It was freezing though. It was January. It was Don't go to Europe in January. It was I was like looking at the weather reports back in New York, and I was like, dude, it would be warmer at home. It's freezing here. But the people were nice, and they had pea soup, which was really nice on a freezing cold day because the wind just whips down those canals, and it was.
Yeah, I'm sure it's really humid too.
Yes, in which the damp and the chill, it was very cold. And so we were in Amsterdam for a couple of days, and then we took a bus from Amsterdam. I think we were into Belgium next. I don't remember if we went to Belgium or France next. And then at some point we ended up taking the ferry from Calais to Dover, and then another bus up to London. Nice. Yeah, it was like 2 weeks, the trip. It was like I was like, I got to do this because who knows if I'll have the money to be able to travel like while I'm studying in London for a couple of months. So that was just wild.
That's right.
Just my wild European adventure. I did nothing wild at all.
I was about to ask.
I think the wildest thing was my friend. I made friends with someone on the trip, and when we went a separate trip to Italy, another school trip. It was the week of my 21st birthday, and we were in Rome, and we I don't remember why we were out there like in like late in the I think we went to like we were like sightseeing, and then it got late, and then we went looking for gelato, and then at some point it was like midnight, and we're like wandering around through this cemetery trying to remember how to get back to the hotel, and I don't know if it was a ghost or if somebody was like deciding to like prank some American tourists or something. Because we're both Americans, so we were speaking English. As we were wandering around attempting to figure out, arguing over like which way will take us back to the hotel, because we just could not figure it out. But like we hear like the like, you know, they're like ooh, and then like the lights were flickering in the tombs, and my friend, of course, was like, oh, I'm gonna go take a picture and see if I can get a picture of the ghost. So we tried to do that, and then like all I know is that he's screaming, he's just flings himself backwards, smashes into me, and he's like, oh my god, the ghost is after us. And next thing I know, he's grabbed my arm, and we are like running out of there. And I'm like, what are we running from? That's my only like wild thing. But it was like 1 a.m. we finally found the hotel. I have this blurry picture.
So you never got the picture? Oh,
I did get the picture. It's this blurry picture of like it's a blurry picture of like a silhouette of a face in like the orangey light. So like I don't know, like to this day, like my friend swears that there was like, you know, a somebody there, and like it's the weirdest thing. I don't know if we were just like super tired, because they made us get up really early on the trip to go on these educational things where they lecture you about all the history and stuff. So I don't know if we were just super overtired and like imagining this, or if somebody was pranking us, or if there was actually something spooky, because these were like Roman ruins. Like this was a really old graveyard. You know, I don't know if the vampires, if the Anne Rice Italian vampires were coming out to great.
There you go. I loved as a kid, you know, as long as you got a friend with you, you can amp a situation up to 11, just by, you know, just going, do you think it is? Do you think it's something? And
well,
you feed off each other, and then it becomes something way bigger than it should be.
Yes, we ended up on like on a plaza, and like we're standing like morons arguing like, did you see that, you know? And then he's like, we should go back, and I was like, no, we shouldn't. What if it was an axe murderer or something? Having one of those dumb conversations at like midnight or 1 a.m. I don't know, it was late, and we were like probably hallucinating from exhaustion.
I had an incident as a teenager where I did something with a bunch of friends that we shouldn't have done, and a lady in a pickup truck interrupted us. And by the end of the story, after we had run away screaming, she had a shotgun and she was pointing it at us, which I'm pretty sure wasn't true. But to us, we just kept saying, did you see her with something? Yeah, I think it was a gun. Was it a gun? Yeah, I saw her pointing it at us. And we just like fed off each other until it became this huge story of
oh wow,
terrifying story.
Oh wow, anyway. That reminds me of the time that my college friends, this is when I was back in the States after studying abroad, decided that we should play I don't remember, I think it was the Ouija board in a cemetery on Halloween. So we went to Heaven's Gate Cemetery because, like, why not? It was only like a few minutes drive from the campus.
And if you're going to go to a cemetery, why not go to one called Heaven's Gate?
Right?
Yes.
You know, let's go to the creepy Catholic cemetery because, you know, what else are we going to do? And, like, all I know is that like everybody's goofing off, like, and giggling. Like the Ouija board was there, but I don't know if we ever actually used it. I don't remember, because like I remember just laughing like maniacs, and like you're like, ooh, what if somebody comes out? And then we heard like this loud like banging, and all I know is that my friends in the car are screaming at me to get us out. It was my car to get us out of there. And so we peel out. and it was just wild. I never found out like what it was, because like you said, like every time the arguments over what it was just kept building it up, and somebody was like, oh, there was a man and the man had a gun or a knife or an axe, or it
all
kept
the time
changing.
there's this little, like, you really know it's not quite true, but
I believe someone was there because the way the cemetery is between two highways and there's houses and stuff. Like, I believe somebody was probably there coming. Like, because it was either
the details are what get embellished.
That's it.
And then
it was probably with
you're embellishing them, but you love it and you can't help saying, yeah, that's what happened.
It's a creepy place. That's and it like lends itself to it. Like we ended up at a diner, like safe and sound, and it, it became the tall tale that everybody embroidered. I never saw anything, but like I was also the driver of the vehicle, so I was not, in the back seat, like, like some of my friends were. So like I couldn't swear to it. Like all I know is in the rearview mirror I saw pitch black. So
it's a good story anyway.
Yeah, it's just Heaven's Gate. I was there for a photography class too at one point during the day at the Heaven's Gate Cemetery, taking pictures, and like we stayed too long, my friend and we got locked into the cemetery.
Oh, that's the beginning of a story right there.
Well, we just called security. The security hadn't left yet, and they just let us out. It was nothing like exciting, but like for a minute there, like the heart was like beating out of my chest because I was like, oh my God, I'm stuck in the cemetery. I don't want to be here. It's creepy. It is such a creepy place. There's some really beautiful statuaries there and some beautiful stained glass, but it is really creepy. Just something about that place is just waiting for a horror movie to be set there. But we've gotten way off target. So we were talking about, but that's okay. This is the fantasy podcast, and we're talking about ghosts and weird things.
And
so
stories,
we're
making
still
up stories.
Yes, we're still totally in line with the theme. So, all right. So we were talking about the sequel to the Relic Thief and the pirate story and possible companion novella.
Yeah.
And so you think that the next book you'll have out after the literary fiction, well, actually, we don't know about literary fiction because you're trying to get a traditional publisher, so that could be a year or more away.
Who knows?
Depending, they're slower.
Once I'm done editing that, I'll go back to.
So if someone's listening to this in the future, they should look for it like late in 2024 or.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay, so there we go. Late in 2024, like maybe third or fourth quarter.
I will be accountable. This will give me accountability. We'll see.
NaNoWriMo's coming up. Ultimate accountability.
Who knows? I honestly, my lifestyle right now doesn't offer a whole lot of time.
But hey, even was it Neil Gaiman did Coraline 50 words a day?
That's pretty sweet.
So I mean, if you did 50 words a day, you too would get there.
I'm one of these writers that has to get into and out of a zone though. Like I have to like really force, because I don't know if I have ADD or something, but I'm always like all over the place. But then when I can get into focusing, I really, really focus. And then it's hard to break me out of that. So it's an energy suck, and my job is an energy suck. So it's all about like, I'm still trying to find balance between how do I give less of myself to the job and more of myself to writing. And
no, you didn't hear that, her employers. If you happen to be listening, she's not giving less of herself to her job.
At my job. No, but you. I mean,
what you're saying.
Emotionally.
Yeah. That's what I understand.
I work with teenagers,
not emotionally drain it. I work with adults. It's not any less emotionally draining dealing with adults all day.
Yeah, sure. Anyway, I just have to discover how to balance that in my life right now.
No, I think what you need to find is a way for writing to be energizing and to give you back
energizing. Writing is energizing for me. It's the teaching part. That's how I need to find how to get energized from that.
Well, there's that. But I find like with the writing, it it puts back in what I have to spend for the day job, for the demanding day job, because I am a project manager for a IT department in a sort of large publisher.
Okay.
Not fiction. They don't do fiction. They do like scientific journals and other things. And so it's draining, but the writing refills that well, so that I'm a better project manager. I'm a more effective
Yeah,
human
that's a
being
nice,
at the
that sounds
job.
like a really nice
I've been
balance.
writing the night before because it refills the well. So, and my characters are like nuts. So like I'm just making sure they get from point A to point B, and at some point we deliver whatever we promised readers that we were going to deliver in this book. And try to keep their shenanigans, that we're keep them moving towards the end of the book.
Yeah.
And some kind of resolution of,
Yes.
Because they can just, they would just take it off in 58 million directions, and it's like, okay,
you gotta herd them like sheep back into.
Yeah, we need to do the three. We need to at least approximate the 3-act structure and get at least most of the elements, to have a good, satisfying story. And so they need to do certain things. They need to progress. They don't always want to progress, but they need to. So we got to give them a swift kick in the butt and make sure they get going on that.
Yeah, 50 words a day sounds really nice.
You should try doing that. Like, just make that your goal. Like, it's not a hard, and then you feel good if you write more than that. You're like, cool. It's instead of going, oh, I only got 60 words. Instead, you're like, hey, I wanted 50 words. I did 10 extra. That's awesome. Or I did 105, or you know what I mean? Like, it's a different way of looking at it. Instead of like beating yourself up for not getting more words, you're looking at it like, I set out to do X, check mark achieved. And look, I did extra, pat myself on the back. So that might be something to try, or make it just 10 words, something that's easy for you to hit, that won't feel like a burden. So you'll actually sit down and do it. And then everything you get over it, like, just celebrate. And that could lead to that positive reinforcement. It could lead to you writing many more words and looking forward to it, instead of it like beating yourself up over it.
Yeah. Make it a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm all about trying to get writers to get more books out. So we have more books to read.
I'll get on that.
Oh, you were going to read us another excerpt. Do you still want to do that? Or
do we have time?
Out of time?
Yeah. All right. So I'll read you the prologue. It's not too long. It introduces, so this book has, this is the cover, by the way, by my lovely friend, John Sheridan.
Just for anybody who's listening through Spotify or other places, it's blue,
misty blue city with lots of towers and parapets and stuff, and rising dark mountains behind it. It's very mysterious looking.
It's a very pretty cover.
Yeah,
and it's not just because I love the color blue.
Yeah, well, like I said, beer, a friend and beer can get you a nice cover.
But you have to have an artist friend who likes beer. If you're lacking that, as I am, you're...
yes, I'm very fortunate. Okay, so the prologue. Darkness. So what I was going to say is this introduces... So throughout my book, you learn who Nila is, like what she ran away from in little vignettes of her past, set up as like dreams. Like it's when she goes to sleep and she dreams about her past. So that's how you learn about who she was before. And then it all comes together, like why she doesn't want to have anything to do with anybody. Why she feels like a ghost in the city. And she steals relics, ultimately not for money, but because it gives her the sense of being alive again, like that. She feels her heart beat. She feels her breath is fast, and it makes her feel like she's more than just like this kind of like lost soul. So this is a little window into what happened to her, where she comes from. Darkness was fleeing faster than the girl. Ahead, purple infused the black horizon, exposing her silhouette. The barley stalks whipped cruelly at her thighs as she ran beside her sisters. A herd of nearby goats bleated softly at their passing, but luckily didn't rouse the herdsman. He and the others would wake soon enough, though. How much further to the desert? Alma, the girl's eldest sister, stopped them, and they huddled together, catching their breath in heaving gasps. They had alternated between running and walking for what seemed like hours. The city was only a faint glow behind them now, mimicking the emerging dawn ahead. "We are going east," Alma signed, the words her fingers formed barely visible. "We must turn south now. We are almost there." Alma splashed down into one of the irrigation channels that radiated from the city like spokes on a wheel. The girl and her other sister, Aimomo, followed obediently. Alma had always been the most clear-headed of them. Somehow she knew what they were doing, even though it was too dark to see the map they'd been given. Once clear of the ditch, they ran again, this time through a cloud of fragrant fluff that swirled up and stuck to their wet legs, cumin and flour. "I am hungry," Aimomo signed. The girl nodded. The smell conjured pangs in her stomach, too. But there would be no food until they were safe, whatever safe meant. They ran on. Their feet crossed the threshold from fertile fields into desolate landscape, just as the raging newborn sun was mellowing. They could no longer run, but had to slog through the sand, their feet making divots in the loose grains rather than prints. Ripples, the language of wind in the desert, distorted their shadows into monstrous shapes that bit at their heels. In the distance, rocky outcrops dotted the sandy plain. They rose from the earth in strange warp shapes, some as small as huts, others larger than the castle where the girl and her sisters had come from. She looked back toward the city. Dust made a column in the distance. She tapped Alma's shoulder. "The Medaween are coming," her sister signed, then pointed to the nearest outcrop. They waded toward it. Walking was slow, every sinking step a labor. The girls were exhausted, but the sound of pounding hooves had reached them now. They pushed on with fearful vigor. As they neared the outcrop, the ground grew increasingly firm. They were able to run again. The pursuing horses swished through the loose sand behind them. The girl had always been fastest of the three. She had always been the most careless as well, and so, as fear drove her far ahead of her sisters, Betta's warning slipped from her mind. "When you reach the sand, you must at all costs stay close to your sisters." The girl had reached the first pebbles of the outcrop when she heard their cries. She turned. Her sisters had been thrown backward to the ground as if they'd run into something. The Medaween on their horses were close now, but hadn't yet reached her sisters. Something else had stopped them. Alma and Aimomo rose and pushed against something, a force of some kind that was preventing them from moving forward. They struggled and called out to her, but couldn't get through. "Stay close to your sisters." She cursed her foolishness and began to run back, but it was too late. The horsemen were upon them. She screamed a warning. The girls turned to face their assailants. Then Alma turned back to her and signed, "Go south. Go to the city in the south. Go now. Go," until the crack of a heavy stick silenced her. "No," the girl screamed. Aimomo was struck next, the strong and sturdy middle child taking the blow and fighting back before being struck again. The girl stood, frozen in horror, as Alma and Aimomo were pummeled again and again, the shimmering heat making it all seem like a terrible dream. 3 of the Medaween dismounted, carrying strange bronze-colored shields that curved up over their heads. They walked slowly toward the girl. Once past the unseen barrier that had stopped her sisters, the soldiers dropped their shields and ran for her. The girl turned and headed back toward the outcrop. One Medaween quickly flanked around, blocking her from its safety. She changed direction and went straight out into the endless sand. She ran as hard as she could, then waded through the softer sand, then stumbled and finally, panting, turned to face her pursuers. They had fanned out behind her and were now advancing step by step. The desert was so quiet she could hear the susurration of their feet in the sand. All she could do was weep and collapse to her knees. The dark, shapeless forms that were her sisters lay unmoving in the distance, the other Medoween covering them, hovering over them, but watching her. The girl closed her eyes and sighed. It was all over. Then the ground quaked beneath her. Lasting a mere moment, it had been strong enough to rattle her teeth. "The shift!" one of the Medoween cried out in panic. She opened her eyes just in time to see the speaker vanish, sand shivering as it swallowed him. The other two stared wide-eyed at each other, unmoving. Time stopped but for their pounding hearts. Suddenly another was gone. He hadn't even had time to cry out. The last one turned and ran back toward the barrier. He was strong and athletic and made magnificent progress, but after a few bounds, he too was sucked into the shivering sand. Gone. Silence. A violent wind suddenly hit the girl. She waited with shallow breaths for the desert to take her, her body rigid in anticipation, but nothing shifted beneath her. The wind howled and grit peppered her face. Her eyes stung and she closed them. Sand found its way into her ears and nose, her hair, the corners of her mouth. She waited, wanting the sand to stop berating her, wanting the desert to just get it over with, but the wind continued, relentless. Why had it only tasted her? Were her sins so heinous she didn't even merit death? When she opened her eyes again, she saw the other Medoween galloping back to the city, pulling the riderless horses behind them, leaving the bodies of her sisters lying in the hot sun. Her panic slowly ebbed, and she turned her attention to the mocking wind. How dare it ridicule and torment her? Fear became anger, and she cursed the desert, goading it to take her. She screamed and damned it as she marched back to her sisters. It doubled its scorn by blowing sand over their bodies, slowly burying them. She dug furiously, tears streaking lines through the dust on her cheeks, but to no avail. The desert was too strong. The desert was the manifestation of everything that had led her there. It was the hopelessness she had tried to escape. It was a battle she had lost, and she had dragged her sisters here with her to their deaths. She dug at the sand around Amma and Aimomo and wept, desperate for their forgiveness, desperate to have them back with her alive and full of the love and protection they had always given her. The sandstorm eventually forced her to seek shelter in the rocks. She found a crevice away from the wind, and once evening's cold settled in, made a fire from the dried goat dung in her pack. No one came for her. No one disturbed her exhaustion. No one came to soothe her of her grief. By morning, the wind and her sisters were gone, the map buried along with them. A flock of birds darted and swooped through the outcroppings, catching insects that emerged with the dawn. The sun glinted off their feathers and they shone like jewels in the air. They trilled and twittered, filling their bellies, and when sated, flew out into the desert toward the sun. The girl followed. So that's just a little introduction to the land that Nila came from. And she ended up in a completely different place.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So were you intending to start with her in the shifting desert? And she was like, yeah, no.
Her background is very intense. So I wanted the contrast between, I wanted to have the place she's from, because it's a very stark, it's a desert setting. It's dry physically and it's dry emotionally. It's very oppressive. The culture there, women have been stripped of absolutely every piece of dignity. They even, unless they're of a certain caste of woman who gets to dance for the men, she's a servant. And if you're a servant, you get your tongue cut out. So you can't speak any evil to men. So that's why her sisters are named Amma and Aimomo, because you don't need your tongue to be able to say those names. But Nila is of the dancing caste, so she can have an L in her name. and her mother, Nila. So
she still has her tongue.
She still has her tongue. Her sisters do not, which is why they needed to use sign language. But you learn that through the book. That isn't apparent at the beginning.
Oh, when did they have their tongue cut out?
Children.
Is there an age?
I didn't say that yet. I haven't fully fleshed out the lore of that land yet, but it's a pretty harsh place. So I'm thinking like, I don't know if it'd be 5 or maybe older, like 10. Like the girls are about in that at that time, the oldest one is about 16, maybe 17, and the middle child, she's 15 going on 16, and I picture Nila more like a 12, 13.
So how do they decide whether you're of the dancing caste or not?
It's all about who sires you. So the sort of king of the city has a harem of dancing ladies, and all the most powerful men have their harem of dancing ladies. But these ladies, if you have a party and you have all these rich men, the rich men can be with your dancing ladies, but if they sire a child, that child becomes a servant. If he's called a danta, if the owner of the dancing ladies creates a baby with them, that becomes a dancing child. Like that child is raised in the dancing culture. So
wow. So yeah. Does she dance?
She's learning to. And what's interesting is the dance is very acrobatic. There's a whole I don't want to give too much away. It will come out more in book, I would say in the 3rd book than any other time, but the dance is very ritualistic and very gymnastical. Like so and that leads Nila, who has learned to do all these flips and tumbles and climbs up ribbons and
so we're talking Cirque du Soleil.
Yeah, sort of.
Dancing.
Yeah, but it's in a dance format. And that is why when she goes to Feral, she starts running on the roofs, because she can climb, she can flip, she can jump, she can tumble. So she ends up athletically making her way over the roofs of Feral with all the other urchin children who do the same. She's one of the only adults that does it in the city, because she's agile enough to be able to do that. Mostly it's just kids.
Oh wow.
And these little animals called chichis, which can be very nasty. So you have to watch out for chichis on the roofs.
What are chichis? Are they like monkeys?
They're just kind of like nasty little monkeys. They're these orange little creatures that roam in gangs, and every once in a while there's a frenzy and they go crazy and they just attack anything they see and try to break in your house and throw things, and they go kind of mad every once in a while. So you always have to carry a stick.
Well, yeah, to beat them off. So so you said in the beginning that like Nila this is not the hero's journey. So it's not Nila against the world. It's Nila and her community that she builds.
Yeah, so the world has already defeated Nila. Nila's already been defeated, and she's just making her way alone and broken in this world. And then
so what changes her? What changes her? Because right there, what you're talking about, it sounds like she's on that hero's quest. And so what diverts her from that and gets her thinking about community and I can't do this alone. I need to bring people together to do this. Like what is there like a specific thing that, or just
it's when Mazul shows up. I know it's right at the very beginning, but when he shows up, things start to change. And then she's contracted to do another to steal another relic, and that goes very, very wrong. And when that happens, she kind of meets a few people that bring her into the fold. Like it's hard to describe, but it's through horrific events that she realizes she must be a part of the force to stop this from happening. I think like until that event happens, she's like, I just want to get out of here. I don't want to have anything to do with, you know, it's really great stealing relics and all, but if there's this bad dude after me, or she, at this point, she doesn't even know he's after her. But if there's this bad dude involved, I just want out. Like, it's too dangerous, whatever. But at some point, she realizes that she can't just let it go. She can't just just run away from her problems or their problems. She cares about the people in the city. She cares about just the regular people that she doesn't think they should be just slaughtered in the streets. And so she knows that she can be a part of helping it to stop. She just needs some convincing. So there are some people that help convince her.
Who are those people? Or we gotta wait till you read the book?
Yeah, I don't want to give it away.
All right, we don't want to. It takes a village, and we're not going to talk about the village.
Yeah, well, it's kind of it's kind of surprising. Like, it's a really motley crew that gets together and works together. So, including some Newfie inspired pirates.
That's what got you on the pirate kick.
I think so, yeah, because I started looking at ships and how all the different kinds of ships and what makes the best pirate ship. And I even started sailing this summer, which was really fun.
That's cool. Where were you sailing? On a river or a lake?
We have a lake where I live. I live outside of Montreal, so there's a lake. It's quite a big lake. And I have a friend who is learning to be a skipper, and she needed a crew. So I joined her crew and pulling ropes and hoisting sails and stuff. It's pretty fun.
That's cool. I have some coworkers who do that. I've not ever had the opportunity.
I didn't until this summer, and it's fantastic. It's a thrill.
I've heard it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Scary.
At some point I need to do it because I have this ridiculous dragons pirate thing that I wrote years ago that I never published. I wrote 2.5 books for it, and I need to finish it, correct it. I knew nothing just about ships or anything.
Yeah.
It's all written by me Googling a lot.
Exactly.
And misunderstanding what I Googled. So I'm okay, we can't put this out here until we can get some knowledge or find someone knowledgeable enough to be no, this is wrong. That's not what it's called.
Something that's really fun is to go to a tall ship festival. I'm sure they must have them in Boston at least, if not New York. But I went to one, and it was really fun. You get to climb on the boats and touch stuff and see how it works, and sometimes they have little displays inside of how it used to be, and they're really fun.
On the Hudson River, and I'm close to it.
There you go.
To look into that.
Mm-hmm. It's really fun to actually just get the tactile sense of the ship by going on one.
We did when I was a kid, because they used to have the I forget what it was. It was a colonial vessel, I think, or something that was supposed to look like it. I don't know if it actually was a historical thing. It used to be I want to say Tarrytown. I remember that vividly, going on the ship when I was a kid.
It's exciting.
It's literally all I remember about it. But yeah, I have to Google that. It's probably too late this summer for that.
Google is our best friend.
Yeah, I'm too deep in too many other books, but it's still on my to-dos. It's just because it's I wrote it as this science fantasy ridiculous mashup, and Matrix meets dragons meets pirates with all of the swashbuckling double crossing of Pirates of the Caribbean minus the rum. I'm not a drinker. And now I'm this would work a lot better if just regular epic fantasy. Shoehorn it somewhere into the world I already created.
Sometimes it's fun to do those real meshes of different tropes and different genres, to just or subgenres, and just mesh them together and see what happens. And sometimes it's just too much.
This was too much, and the plot started to suffer for it and fall apart because it was not. It doesn't work the way the original concept is, it would definitely work better as traditional epic fantasy. But then my like epic fan, then my characters that I have in, because I have 21 books that I wrote, and like this one world that I created that I read all my epic fantasy books about, and like if I set it somewhere in there, they're gonna be like, hey, can we join? We want to play with the dragons and pirates too. Should you get all the fun? So like that's why it's sitting on the me not knowing anything about ships, and I'm afraid of all the 21 books worth of characters wanting to crowd in.
Yeah,
to
but think about it, you don't know anything about dragons either, right?
Yeah, well,
not really.
Well, I do, because like I do have dragons.
But your boats can be as fantastical as your dragons, right? You don't have to write about real ships if you're writing fantasy.
This is like, I would like enough reality that like, because there's always the armchair critics or like the people who actually have been on boats. Like I would like to get like some of the like basic terminology correct, like, you know, like which part of the ship is where, like nothing advanced.
You need to know what a mast is.
Yeah, like I do know what that is, but like, and I know it's starboard and port, and like I get that stuff, but like being able to, like, if someone's like leaning over this, like the side of the ship, like what is that called? You know, like just basic parts of the ship, so that like when people are doing things, like it makes sense. Like nothing super technical, but just like,
well, for me it was Nila going onto a ship, and she didn't know anything about ships anyway, so I didn't really need to know about ships anyway. So like through her eyes, it was all new, and the captain could tell her stuff, but she was like, okay, whatever. Can I climb that ropey thing there? Is that okay if I go sit up at that top roundy thing? Is that all right? Yeah. So I didn't. It depends on whose point of view is exploring the ship, right?
Unfortunately, all the characters in that book are people who've grown up. They live on like islands, so they're all very much involved in boat culture. So I needed to know enough not to sound like a moron.
Yeah.
Not any.
I saw a movie. I grew up on a dairy farm, and we grew corn. And I saw a movie recently that was a really fascinating movie, really good. But the guy goes out in the middle of summer with a shovel into his cornfield and starts digging a hole. And clearly, whoever wrote the film had never worked on a farm in his life or her life. Because
how is that person going to get back from the cornfield to their house? Because corn grows taller than people.
Oh, he was on the edge of it, to be fair, but yeah.
Because the way you described it sounded like you went into the cornfield. Well, like I have done that. I've been to corn mazes. You can literally not see anything unless you're like super tall.
As a kid, we used to run through them, like get really, really deep into the cornfield, and just we loved it. But you kind of like when you grow up in the land, you kind of have a good sense of direction anyway. So
I did not. I grew up in Putnam County, New York, and I knew where. I mean, I could find my way out of the woods because we're surrounded by state parks, but and like literally you walk more than a few blocks in any direction and you're in a state park, or you're in the lake. But
a state park, I think, is way more scarier than a cornfield.
Oh, there was like abandoned cars, and like there was this little like house in the woods, and it was abandoned, but like all the plates were on the table. Like it was set like people left in the middle of a meal. Ooh. But there was we couldn't tell if there was any food because we couldn't see enough. And all the kids in my neighborhood were all like idiots, like crowding us into like trying to see through the windows.
I love that. That's amazing.
We used to go into the woods to play ball because there was no like area, and like there was like clearings in the woods where like or just naturally the trees were like, nah, we don't feel like being in this area. Yep. You know, you kids, and we would just like throw balls around or whatever, and like I remember that the old cars abandoned in there because like I grew up in a town that used to be where people left New York City and went up for the summer to vacation, and in like the turn of the century or whatever, and so so there's just like all sorts of crazy things in the woods. Don't know what those people were getting up to, but whatever it was, they left it in the woods.
Yeah.
Not
Most
even
old farms
foreign.
will have dumps where they just dumped a whole bunch of stuff. Those are fascinating to go through. We have a
Oh,
creek near
really?
us. We call it Glass Creek because I guess there must have been a factory above um, above where the stream runs down, but it's all glass, like from glass bottles. So the whole stream bed is all different colored glass.
Oh,
And
wow.
sometimes you find like half bottles or a full bottle with just a little hole out of it. It's kind of fascinating to go through.
Where does the glass come from? Like, is
Yeah,
it
I don't
flowing
know.
down from somewhere else?
It was either like somebody's dump, and the old blue bottles from like Pepto Bismol type things, milk of magnesium, is that what it was called?
Oh, yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
you see stuff like that. So I don't know if it was personal dump or there's actually like some sort of factory above where the water comes down. But anyway, it's a neat creek to explore. It's weird
That's
stuff though.
wild.
Hmm.
That's so cool. And is the glass like have the rounded edges?
No.
Um, oh,
No,
okay.
it's nasty,
Because
sharp, and
because the only glass that I've seen like in water is like the sea
honest.
glass that's been
Yeah.
polished and um where it's all rounded and like
No,
you
this doesn't
can't.
get rolled around enough. It's just it's been broken, or it comes down with a spring thaw and then just kind of stays there. So it doesn't get rolled around enough to get smooth.
Oh, so you have to be careful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of crazy that it's there.
That's wild. That's really wild.
Hmm.
And now that we're talking about the water polishing and rounding things, and remembering when I was a small child on the shores of Lake Erie, and like picking up the rounded stones,
Hmm.
and they were like some of
Hmm.
them were perfectly round
Hmm.
spheres.
Yeah. Yeah. There's pretty cool beaches along the Great Lakes like that.
Yeah, yes, there were, and
Hmm.
yeah, I just have that vivid flashback. I think I was 8.
Hmm.
Just picking up like the rounded stones. We were like just stopped. We were on the way to my aunt's house in Ohio, and I think we stopped for a picnic on the shores of Lake Erie because my parents were like, "Well, we have food. We need somewhere we can eat with 3 children. Where we're not going to get uh, thrown out of if they're loud." And you know, I remember that picking up the rounded stones with my sister along the shores. I miss her. This has been fantastic. Is there anything else you want to say about the Relic Thief or like the million other things we've talked about? Hopepunk or the heroine story, or just anything? We've
No,
been all
I'm
over.
pretty good. I think that's about it for me. And
Cool. Then that'll do it for
yeah,
this
it was
episode.
a real pleasure to get to meet you, and the offer stands if you come up to Montreal. Hit me up.
I want to get up there. I never get any time off, but I do want to get up there. One of my favorite I love Louise Penny, and she like sets like all of her Inspector Gamache stories like
Yes.
in Three
Yeah.
Pines, which is in Montreal. And I was like scouring the maps of Montreal, like it must be here somewhere. I want to
It's
visit it. And I'm like, it
fictitious.
doesn't exist.
It's totally fictitious, but it's pretty
Yeah.
cool. But
But
did you watch
there
the TV show?
there's a TV show?
Oh yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
know.
I
What
think it's
network?
on Prime.
Oh, I have Prime. I'm
I
Is it
hope
good?
it's
Cause like
more than I. Yeah, it's very good. It's very, very
okay.
good.
Is it true to the books? Because I've read all of the books
Um,
many times.
I'm not sure. I haven't read that many of her books, but I feel like it is like it's different than your regular murder mystery. It has a feeling to it that is different, and I really like the series. It's
Does
very
it like is it do they portray Canada correctly? Because like
no,
like
some
Montreal
of it,
is such
yes.
a big it's like it's almost it's its own character in the book, and Three Pines as well. Like the
Hmm.
city of Montreal and like the province, like they are their own distinct
Yeah.
characters almost the way that Louise Penny writes them. And like and so I'm like afraid to watch the show because like I love the murder mysteries and I love the characters, but I also love the setting, and like
Hmm.
they've become their own characters and I adore them.
Hmm.
And like
Well, you will find little towns like Three Pines. For sure. There's little like cool little towns with cool little boutiques and restaurants that serve really amazing food. I actually live in a town called Hudson, which is to the west of Montreal. So it's not the same geographical area as Three Pines, but it's very much a cool town that we have these amazing restaurants, like gourmet restaurants, and cute little, like we have a popsicle lady that sells these amazing homemade popsicles, and
That's so
very cool
cool.
little things going on all the time. Like we have a little theater, and a train comes once a day, and
That's
it's
so
so,
cool.
and it's very it's, I guess I would say my town is a lot of anglophones, but it's also French too. So there's a lot of mixing of cultures, which is like Three Pines. Three Pines
Yes.
has both French and English people living in it.
And that's what's so fascinating is the different things.
Yeah,
And this small town, I grew up in a somewhat small town in Putnam County, New York, but definitely not as small as Three Pines.
yeah. Hudson's
And
not that small either. It's like 5,000, but we're right across from Oka, and I'm not sure if that's the reservation that where I feel like a lot of filming was done in Oka, as opposed to Ganasatake, which is to the south of Montreal, but I can't be positive. But yeah, we live across the lake from them, which is cool.
that's pretty cool. That's so cool. Now I gotta go up there because like it just
Yeah.
seems. But I want to go, but I'm like, it's not going to be like it is in the books. But
No,
that's both a good thing and that's probably a good thing.
maybe.
No book can accurately represent like anywhere. Like
No,
at the end of the day,
no.
like the setting is its own character. I love her books so
Hmm.
much.
She's great. I actually didn't know anything about her until I went to gosh, is it Brome? Is it? It's either Lac Brome or one of the, or oh, there's a couple little towns, really cool little towns down close to the border. And I was in like a bookshop, an independent little bookshop there, and I was browsing around, and then they had Louise Penny poster up with her and the bookstore owner like together, and then they had all
Oh
this whole
wow.
Louise Penny section. I was like, oh look, they're really supporting a local author. That's so sweet. I'm gonna buy one of her books and support her. And then I got home and found out that she was this huge celebrity writer. And here,
Yeah.
here I thought she was just a local writer, and the local bookstore was really supporting her.
Yeah,
So I
no,
felt like a chump.
she's her books are just I love them.
She's good.
uh, she does some like and one of the things that I most admire about her is that she takes risks. Like some books are she doesn't always write the book, like act one starting with the sometimes she writes things in there's a couple books she wrote where the book begins at the end, and at the end of the book you get the beginning. And
Hmm.
she did one of the more recent ones she did was like that. It took place during the pandemic, and there was this event that happened at the very beginning of the book, and we didn't find out to the end how that happened.
Okay.
Instead of showing you it was an explosion at the end, it was at the beginning, and they're piecing together sort of what happened, because a number of officers were injured, and like it was at a community thing, and it was during COVID time when things are very tense. It was a very creative way to tell a story. It was I don't know if it would count as like deconstructionist, but like it's like she took apart the standard 3-act structure and put it back together in a different way, and it was
Hmm.
just it was a very good book. It was a very interesting read,
I'll keep an eye out
mainly
for it.
because I just didn't know like where is this going to go, because it was not the traditional way to tell a story.
Hmm.
But I
That's
knew the
cool.
characters, and I was like, I want to, and you didn't find out till the end what happened to some of them. Were they hurt? Were they okay? Were
Do you
they
remember what it was
alive?
called?
It was I'm gonna if I Google it right now, I can probably tell you because I've read her books. I've read most of her books. I've read all the whole series like at least 5 times. Like some of the books I've read more, just because I reread the series when the next book comes out. Let me just books. I need them in order. I think, was it The Rule Against Murder? It's the one that takes place during the pandemic.
Okay, I'll have a look at it because it's clearly recent.
It is. Or the brutal. No, it's not The Brutal Telling. That was the. Oh, I don't want to give away. That was very good, but that was not. It was not The Brutal Telling. Oh, I think it was The Madness of Crowds.
The title fits with the theme.
I think it was The Madness of Crowds. And I'm pretty sure it was that one. But she had some other ones that she told in a very creative way. Like I think The Brutal Telling was one. It's some of her books are like, police procedural murder mysteries wrapped in like a cozy mystery. There's like both, and she hit, the way she's able to blend them and hit them is amazing. And some of her books are more the cozy, like if the murder, the problem is in Three Pines, and some of them are more the police procedurals. They take place more in Montreal, in the city of Montreal. And it's just fascinating, like how she's able to do that and show the dichotomy between the small town and the big city. It's just, I think that's why I find it so fascinating, is like how she's blending the two, and she's hitting like exactly all the things that you want for both every time. So that like I like cozy mysteries, and I also love police procedurals. And like, I'm just left like wanting more. Like I finished the book and I'm like, no, I want more. This can't be the end. I love these characters. They're become like, I like I want to move to Three Pines and go to the bookstore and
eat at the cafe.
Yeah, I love it so much.
Yeah, it's cute.
It's one of the many story worlds that I would love to inhabit someday. Yeah. I'm sorry, I went like way off on a tangent.
Oh, that's okay.
She's one of my favorite like authors. She's that like, oh my God, she has a book. Where is the buy now button? Why do I not already have the book? Why do I need to even hit the buy now button? Why did it not just appear in my library? Take my money. It should have been mine already. like that kind of, I just enjoy her storytelling so much.
Well, I'll check out that book for sure.
I think it's The Madness of Crowds.
I'll read the synopsis, and I should know from that.
Yeah, it takes place during the pandemic.
Starts with an explosion.
I don't know if they mentioned the explosion in the back of the book.
Okay.
I know that like going in, like I wasn't sure what to expect, but like I know I love her stuff, so I was like, I don't care. I'm not even sure I read the synopsis. I don't always read the synopsis. Sometimes I just want to read the book and not know what's happening. Or I just skim them to make sure like it checks my favorite trope boxes. And then like, I just skim it for various keywords. Okay, we've hit the keyword. Ding, 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 ding. Okay, gonna purchase. And I did that today. I didn't read the blurbs. I'm sorry, authors. I just skimmed for my, for like things that I like and if I saw them in the blurb, I was like, all right. And some of them, like I skimmed the blurb a little and like I hit the listen to sample. And if like the sample like ticked off the boxes, it was like, okay, purchase. I don't know. I'm easy. I'm really easy when it comes to audiobooks.
I have a battery warning on my computer. That's how long we've been talking.
So let's sign off. Let me close this episode out. So thank you all for coming to another episode of Fantasy Lore and More. We'll be back with another fantasy author and another fantasy book. Today we were talking to Jill Chard about the Relic Thief and many, many, many other things. So thank you again, Jill. Have a great day and a great night wherever you are.